Okay. So there's my start screen. So hello. Um, I have, for most of my career, I have worked in science visualization, and then as funding for that became harder and harder to get, I started working in more general data visualization. And recently, well, I guess the last 10 years or so, I have really been trying to transition into becoming a full-time artist. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So my creative process is I used to only just create with code. I would create a particle system or a, formatting data. And but recently I've really been enjoying drawing by hand. It's very meditative for me, and both this talk may seem a little disjointed because wait a minute, she creates with code and then she draws with a pen. How are they related? But it all comes down to biochemistry and the underlying structures that I am uh, exploring with my art. So I'm going to start with particle system based art. So I'm sure most of you have seen this structure, this table, this torment for many young students. But it's really fascinating, especially if you start playing with how to set up this table with code. Like, how do you line them up? Why are they lined up that way? It's because of the periodicity of how atoms behave based on how many protons they have in their nucleus. And I like to use pretty colors. So when I created this table, I originally it was interactive, but the technology for that I created it doesn't really exist anymore. So this leads to chemistry. For me, this is how I think about atoms. They're just little balls bouncing around, bouncing against boundaries, bounce against each other. And in my code, I'm not sure if anybody wants to hear about the code structures. I have my model behind it where I have my list of atoms. They each have their own atomic number, and their behavior in the system is dependent on that atomic number. This is more abstract than actual chemistry, so it come with me on this journey, and I hope some of it is interesting. I need to go back. Okay, so at the time I was started working with particle systems, it was early in my journey of becoming a computer scientist. I didn't know about quad trees yet. I was doing brute force collision detection. And that's just telling when different particles are going to bounce into each other. Because my assignment was to work with this professor who was trying to create a learning tool for chemistry students. And the system programmatically had to function sort of like a chemistry, an actual in a test tube atoms would interact. And to do that, I had to know if the atoms were close enough to each other to form a chemical bond, like say hydrogen and oxygen forming water. And to do collision detection, it had to do all those calculations quickly enough before the frame of the animation ran out of time. So I was doing all kinds of debugging, including visual debugging. When my system detected a collision, I would draw a big red circle around the dots because I would be watching this running and I couldn't tell if anything was happening. And it was a mess. I'm much better at it now. But the fun part about this is that the visual debugging tool, the circles around circles, it looked really kind of cool. And once I got my system running the way it was supposed to, I went back to that debugging tool and I started playing with it. And I was pushing the boundaries and I was playing with colors. And before I knew it, I had created this piece. And I realized that I had found my voice as an artist. Up until this point, I did not consider myself an artist. I was just a coder. I was just playing with molecules. I took the concept and kept going even further. In this system, I've not only given each atom a atomic number, which is symbolized by its color, I'm also giving it an abstract shape. I'm taking it out of the realm of simulation and just purely exploring creative possibilities. In this image, every line represents the atomic number that this particle of another particle that this particle has been in collision with. So take it in a goofy direction and you say, okay, this image is a recording of all the conversations, all the information shared between each particle in the system. But to me, I just think it's pretty. It doesn't have to have any more meaning than that. Okay, now we get into biochemistry. Up until this point, it was just simple atoms bouncing into each other and using that as a creative starting place to create art. Now, my academic background was more in biochemistry and molecular biology, and I did not enjoy my chemistry courses until I got to biochemistry. Up until that point, I was just, memorizing things. Nothing was really inspiring me, or I just didn't get it. It didn't really click until I got to biochemistry. And that's where we start talking about bigger molecules, DNA, proteins, how proteins are formed by stochastic action, just things bouncing around. And protein foldings. So I don't have my notes here, so I'm trying to figure out where I'm going. Okay, so when proteins are formed, mRNA is created in the nucleus. And this is the messenger RNA. Yes, it's the same mRNA that is the starting point for the new vaccines. mRNA is basically the template for what a protein will be formed from. It is a linear string of codes that control what amino acids are strung together like a necklace, like beads on a necklace. And this in turn forms the 3D structure. This piece is inspired by that concept. It is a Python script that I call self-drawing code. And at the time I was learning about code reflection, and I've discovered this really cool property of Python, which is that Python can take its own string of code as data input. I thought that was really cool. So I thought, what if my Python script was like mRNA, and it is creating an image, a self-portrait of itself, based on the characters in the string of code. Now, not all of I this is a bit of a jump. It doesn't stay strictly within the scope of this talk, but I really like this piece a lot. It's not a particle system. It has a lot of shared code from my old code base. But I was working with a neuroscientist on another project, and she said to me, "Hey, do you think you could use code to generate images of neurons?" And we picked the pyramidal cells, which are in your brain. And the surprising thing is that these look a lot like actual pyramidal cells, based on very simple rules and patterns for growth. Okay, so now we're moving to my low-tech approach to creating art. The last, gosh, it was a few years before COVID hit. So what, 8 years ago, I started, no, maybe almost 9. I started this creative challenge called Inktober. And you're supposed to draw by hand with a pen every day for a month. And I started doing it and I was like, wow, this is really bad. I am not good at this at all. But by the end of that month, I realized, oh, wow, I found another voice within me, or I found another aspect of my creative voice, and I can do this, and I'm not done drawing yet. That has become my Inky Days series, which I do every day for the past almost 9 years, and I have not missed a single day drawing, including when after waking up from my cancer surgery. So I do it every day. The key is to keep it simple, keep it small, and let myself mess up, because that's a big part of creativity, is being able to make mistakes and either move on from them or make something out of them. This is my pen, my glass drawing pen. Drawing with this pen changes my whole uh, physical state in many ways. You can't, it's not like a regular pen where you just keep drawing and drawing, drawing, and you never run out of ink. This is more like painting with a paintbrush, where you have to load the brush up with more ink, with more paint. My pen, I have to dip every few strokes to get the ink. Sorry, I'm stuttering here. It it is more meditative to do than to talk about, actually, but the process slows me down and it makes me more calm. And this is the kind of stuff I create with this pen. I know this doesn't look like molecules to you, but it is. These blobby orange things, those are renditions of proteins. The squiggly lines and the circles, that's a phospholipid bilayer. This is an abstract representation of this, of the membranes of the cells in your body. Now, this one is going back more to the straightforward chemistry, except I'm not so much worried about who's bonding to whom. I'm more looking at the structures that can be formed. This is we're verging into an area here where I wasn't sure how much science I should bring into it. There are things like p orbitals and s orbitals, and there's like physical shape to atoms of how much space they can occupy and how they can interact with other atoms. So you could imagine that these bead-like things, maybe that's a hydrogen, maybe this is a carbon molecule, but this is abstract. They're not actual representations of atoms. It's just more the theory that certain atoms can form different numbers and angles of bonds. And I start this at a single point. I don't sketch it out ahead of time. I don't compose anything ahead of time. I just start at a point. I have a set of rules and I work from the inside out. Some of my pieces don't look anything like chemistry on the surface, but this image to me is a chemical structure. I see the orbitals, I see the constraints of how they can interact with each other. And because I do have a silly side, I have to include some kind of whimsy, such as some fish swimming around. So, some closing thoughts. I have a feeling I raced through this talk, but the most important thing I want to get through is that inspiration for art can come from anywhere. You know what I completely forgot to mention is that, gonna back up. This piece looks a lot like my old notes. When I was a student, most of my studying and note-taking practice was about drawing diagrams, and they didn't look this good. They were just kind of thrown together. And in fact, lots of my exams were about drawing diagrams and labeling them. And a lot of that comes through in the art I do today. I don't do as much public or student communication about science, but I still kind of do it in a semi-sneaky way by having the science be at the core of the topics I explore artistically. And it's really important to play. If I had given up on that visual debugging tool, if I had just put it away and never looked at it again, I would never have found my voice as an artist. And play is essential for that. Now, I'm not the only science artist out there. There are a lot of us. The community has kind of been split since the fall of Twitter, and the people are on different platforms. I tend to stay on Mastodon. But if you're on any other platform, including Mastodon, look for the hashtag SciArt. That is, you're going to find some interesting people. A lot of them will be illustrators. Not many are as abstract as I like to be, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you'll find. Now, years ago when I started, everybody was calling this generative art. But because that term generative has been appropriated by some companies, a lot of us are starting to call this field procedural art instead of generative. And that's it. Thank you. Let's see. I raced too much, didn't I? How do I get out of this?
That was great. You were perfectly on time. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, look, there's my speaker notes.
Hey.
Okay, exit full screen. Okay.
What did we miss?
A lot, but most of it is in the paper version of this. It's like I was trying to figure out how to stitch this story all together. This is my first time talking about these two topics together. Usually I talk about one or the other, not together, but they're really both sides of me and my creative process.
Great, and your enthusiasm came across very well. So Eve made a comment, Inktober, my nemesis.
Well, I started like 9 years ago and I have not stopped.
The long October.
Well, now I do. Now sometimes I don't follow the official prompts. I don't know if even they do them anymore. But now I try to give myself an extra challenge, excuse me, in October. So like some years I'll only work in black ink. So I don't let myself play with color. If you're familiar with my work, color is my reason for existing.
Nice, and I really love the quality of the lines produced with that glass pen. I've not seen that kind of pen before, actually.
They're really cool. They make Herbin. I don't know, Jacques Herbin, it's a French company.
Right, yes.
So they're famous for their ink, but they do the best glass dipping pens I have found. My first one died. Well, it broke. I'm a lot more careful now.
Very cool. So any more questions online or in one of the watch parties?
I have a small question.
Oh, we have one in Sheffield from Nikita.
Hello.
Hello.
When you draw every day, do you kind of give yourself a time limit? Do you sometimes, if it's like, oh, I'm drawing for 10 minutes every day for a bigger piece, do you continue the next day? How does this work?
Well, I have my sketchbook. Here's yesterday's drawing. I haven't done today's yet.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see that there's limited space. So that's a constraint. If I really love a pattern, like I'm kind of obsessed with these floral patterns.
Mm-hmm.
They're very calming and soothing for me to draw, and it's been current events have been a little upsetting, so I draw a lot of flowers now. So if I really fall in love with a pattern, I start working on it on watercolor paper. And in my daily drawings, I push myself to try to mess up if I can, or not to do it perfectly. I try to push myself to try new patterns. Like the other day, I started drawing mosquitoes and I didn't like it and nobody liked it. So I'm not going to draw those again. But pushing myself, the time and space that I give myself to like explore and mess up is in my daily drawings. Sometimes it takes me 5 minutes, sometimes it takes me an hour. It depends on my schedule, I guess. If I have time, I'll do, but usually it doesn't take me very long.
Ooh. Well, thanks very much. Unless there's any questions in Berlin or elsewhere, just give them a chance to.
Yes, not really a question, but Kristin, thank you for sharing this. I feel like each of the 3 elements that you shared in terms of your art was intriguing me to find out more. So I hope I'll find out more after I Google you. So I'll try to follow the
Well,
hashtags.
I'm a woman, so I'm probably not very Googleable.
No, I'll follow the hashtags. I feel like those are the
Okay.
breadcrumbs.
And writing this was an amazing experience because it really got me thinking about, okay, how do I tell this story? This is a story I need to tell. And I think I'm going to be doing more writing and more sharing of my approach.
I think that would be lovely. And thank you for reminding us about, or me at least, about Inktober. I think it was a challenge that I did like years ago. And
Yeah.
this is a sign. So I'll take it as it is and probably start it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And right now I'm participating in something called SciArt September. So that's another hashtag to look at, but that's just this month. And there's a couple different versions. The SciArt community is very splintered, and not as many are on Mastodon as I wish, but I don't know, they'll join us eventually.
Yeah. Join Mastodon, everyone. That's a place to be.
It's distributed. I like myself better when I'm active on Mastodon than the big socials. I'm my better self on Mastodon than other ways.
Yeah, let's share our Mastodon account
Yay!
in the chat. So yeah, one more round of applause for Kristin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That wasn't nearly as scary as I thought it would be.
That was really good. And I think your enthusiasm came across all the more for the lack of notes, even though it might have been slightly more stressful on your part. Okay, so thank you.